Welcome back to Talking Ball. It's Jack, and today I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a reaction to the post March Madness mock draft by ESPN. So let's just jump right into it. First pick, Cooper Flag. Not much to say about that at this point. He's been the projected number one pick for quite some time. In the number two pick, I would also say something similar with Dylan Harper. I feel like he's been locked in to this number two spot for quite some time at this point. Number three is where the draft really starts to get interesting for me because you've got Ace Bailey. And the start of the season, for sure, the top three players were Bailey, Harper, and Flag. And I think as the year went on, those top two really solidified themselves in that order with Flag and then Harper. But I think here at pick three, there's a little bit of flexibility with who this pick could end up being. And I certainly agree that, Ace Bailey is he honestly might be the most talented player in the draft, and he would be the most talented player on the board at this point. But there are concerns just with his basketball focus, IQ, especially on the defensive end, and his shot selection offensively, which really hurt his efficiency. So I kind of hope Ace Bailey ends up on a team a little bit different than what they say in this article, a team that would give him patience. I think if he goes to a team that's maybe a little bit better and it forces him to be more selective with his shot selection, I think that could be better for his long-term growth rather than just allowing him to do what he did at Rutgers. VJ Edgecombe at pick 4. I mean, he had a really good year. Started off slow, but finished really strong for Baylor, and I think he's certainly in consideration for pick number 3. And it'll be up to who's picking to really decide. Pick number 5, Trey Johnson. This is where I might say something that's a bit controversial, but I don't think I would draft Trey Johnson. It has nothing to do with his talent, because I think him and Ace Bailey are the two most talented scorers in this draft. For me, what it comes down to is his on-court maturity. I haven't spoken to the guy. I don't know what he's like off the court, but on the court, there's several times in multiple games where his frustration boiled over into either outward displays, where he was very demonstrative, or you would notice his defensive effort wouldn't be the same. If he didn't get the ball, he would kind of just stand there. So there are just things that worry me about Trey Johnson. I still think he's going to be a tremendous scorer, but in terms of a winning player, which is what I want when I would be drafting if this was going to be my team, it would be hard for me to get over those concerns with Trey Johnson. And I get last point here. I get that he's a freshman, and there's certainly lots of time for him to learn and grow and improve upon some of those concerns. And to that, I would say, I think like 13 of the 14 lottery picks in this mock draft are also freshmen, and I don't have those concerns with anyone else. And so for me, that just it kind of rules him out. Jeremiah Fears, man, this guy is electric. The only concern I really have for Fears is whether he can, and it's not really even a concern, it's just how great can he be? Can he become a better perimeter shooter? Because I think that's going to be the key to unlocking him from being, a good player to a really good player to potentially a great top 15 level NBA player. I think he could be that good. Speaking of a guy with a lot of untapped potential, Kaman Malawach, who had a tremendous NCAA tournament until correctly pointed out in this article, until the Houston game where he just didn't have his best game. That's putting it kindly. The 7'2" player, Malawach, who I really love, he didn't have any rebounds in 20 minutes in that game, which was concerning. However, there was some news that if came out a couple hours before the game. I'm not sure if he even knew about it, so it's hard for me to say whether that affected him. But I also think it was one bad game. He had a couple other games throughout the season where he didn't rebound well enough, and that is one area of concern. But he is one of the youngest players in this draft class, and he hasn't been playing basketball for very long. Along with the fact that pre-Duke and even a little bit at Duke, he flashed the potential to shoot the three-point shot. You combine that with his rim protection, I think there is a world where Kaman Malawach ends up being one of the top 3 players from this draft. Kon Knippel. He is a guy who really surprised a lot of people this season. If you look at the expectations, coming into this year, I don't think Kon Knippel was on a lot of mock drafts. I don't think he was expected to necessarily be a one-and-done guy. Could be wrong, but that's just how I remember it. And he really had a great season for Duke. He also showed that in the moments without Cooper Flagg, he really has the ability to play make and set up his teammates. He had 28 points and 8 assists against Georgia Tech in a game which was played largely without Cooper Flagg. His athleticism isn't great, and that could hurt him defensively, although I thought he got better as a defender throughout the season. And then offensively, he relied a lot on his intelligence and really his pump fakes around the rim especially. And that is something that it will work, but it will work less at the NBA level where there's better scouting and better athletes and more size. And so I think he will be a very good role player with the potential to be, a third or maybe even second option on a championship team. Kasparas Yakuchonis, they have going here, pick number 9 to the Trailblazers. Really intriguing player. Had a really good first half of the season, not as great in the second half of the season. Turnovers, etc. kind of struggled, as well as defensive concerns. Not the best athlete, but he, similar to Knippel, can really make plays for his teammates. Has good size for a point guard. So I think he's a really intriguing player. Colin Murray-Boyles. It's really interesting. His team was not very good, evidence the 2-16 record in SEC play, but Murray-Boyles had a really good season, and he did so while not really improving upon the three-point shot that I thought at least he could really showcase this season. So he's a really intriguing guy as a little bit undersized center, certainly, and he's got good size, I would say, for the power forward position, but he's not a three-point shooter. So I think team fit is going to really matter for Murray-Boyles, and if he can go to a team with a 5 that can shoot, that will really help him get off to a good start for his NBA career. Speaking of talented bigs, Derek Queen. As they say here, the most talented offensive big in the class. The only questions I have for Queen, is he going to be better at the 4 or the 5? I don't think he's a great defender, so if you can get him, lots of teams are playing more bigs these days, so I think he could play some at the 4 at the next level. Extremely talented big. Yegor Demin, probably the best passer in this draft. The only thing with Demin, as they say, he's not great at beating guys off the dribble. And his three-point shot started off the year well. I thought he ended the year well, but in between wasn't consistent enough with his three-point shot. That's going to really make or break his NBA career. He does have good size, and he can get to the basket, but it's just not necessarily a strength of his. Liam McNeely. He had an up and down year, I would say, for UConn. I'm kind of surprised he's going as high as he is. I kind of have him going a little bit later. I think he's a role player. I think that the Kevin Huerter comparison makes sense for McNeely. And I just think he'll need to shoot the ball more consistently at the next level because I worry about some of the other aspects of his game. Jace Richardson, this guy's going to be really good at the next level. And at first, I didn't buy into it, and that's on me. Not only can he shoot the 3 ball really well, but even though I think he's listed at 6'2" or 6'3", he's got a long wingspan. he can really finish in and around the basket. So those two things combined with his overall solid defensive play, he's really good. I'm surprised he's going 14 here. I think he's a top 10 pick. Spurs taking Joan Behringer. Don't know much about Behringer. I'm going to move on here. Will Riley. Start out strong. Had some struggles. I think he's a guy who can shoot the three. And I would say the other thing he does really well is he moves well off the ball. His ability to cut to the basket is pretty solid. I'm not sure if he's going to end up going this high, though, but we will see. Noah Senge. I'm just going to cut through this. I didn't watch any of the international guys. Nolan Traore is the one guy I am a bit familiar with, having seen him. I think it was a Jordan Brand Classic, if I remember correctly. He looked really good. Maybe it wasn't. It was the game in Oregon. That might be the wrong name, but a lot of people saw him there. I put him up, in my top 5 initially in this year's mock draft. He really struggled shooting for St. Quentin, or that's probably not how you pronounce that. But anyways, I understand why he's dropped. I do think, though, this could be a bit too far, and I think he might be worth a selection a little bit higher up in the draft. I think 18 might be a bit too far. Danny Wolf had a tremendous season for Michigan. He's a really unique player because he's a 7-footer who can really handle. His shooting is probably not as good as you'd like. It's like a 70% free throw shooter and 30% from 3. But his passing, the ability to handle, questions as to what position he will play, but he's a really intriguing player. I think this is about right for Wolf. Carter Bryant. Man, Carter Bryant is a guy, this is interesting. He's going to the Thunder. That'll give him time to develop. He's a guy who I think is a real sleeper in this draft. He didn't get a ton of playing time, and in part deservedly so. It took him some time to develop for Arizona, but I think his defensive ability, his three-point shooting, his size, he's 6'8", 225, 230 as a freshman. I think there's a lot to build off of with Carter Bryant. Asa Newell, the freshman from Georgia, really intriguing guy. Similar to other guys like Queen, Murray Boyles, who are kind of a tweener, 4'5". I think the key for Newell at the next level, as I mentioned here, is going to be his three-point shooting. And if he can be a more consistent three-point shooter, I don't think it will matter if he's a 4 or a 5 as much. So that's going to be something that to monitor. For Newell, I think that's appropriate, 2021. Hugo Gonzalez going here at 22. Ben Saraf at 23. Thomas Sorber. Surprising that this guy could be one and done, but I think deservedly so. I really do. And if he wants to come out and be a pick, I think 24 is about right. I think he'll go certainly in the first round if he decides to stay in this year's draft. As a guy who can really score as a big man, and he put up good steals and blocks numbers and rebounding numbers as well for Georgetown. He has a good understanding of just creating space, finding angles as a big man, runs the floor, showed a willingness to shoot the three, didn't shoot them well. I'm curious if that's something he will improve upon or if he's going to kind of leave that part of his game behind. But either way, I do think he is a first-round pick. Nick Clifford. Talk about a guy whose career really flourished because of the transfer portal. He leaves Colorado to go to Colorado State in part because they were bringing in, what's his name? Cody Williams, two seasons ago. Now goes to Colorado State, has a great senior season, comes back, has an even better, as they're saying here, super senior season. I call him a graduate. I just think this guy's an NBA player. I think he'll be a good role player for a number of years. He just looks the part. He really improved these past 2 years with more opportunity. I like Nick Clifford. Another guy I like is Adu Thero, I think is how he pronounced his name. Missed the end of the season. Really good defensive player. High energy guy. Knows how to cut to the basket, create openings. He's not a great shooter, but he's got good size at 6'8" to defend multiple positions. And if he can become an average shooter, I think he can be a part of a winning team. Yaxel Lindeborg, very interesting because he has now transferred to Michigan. So I'm sure Michigan will hope that he's not going to get a first round grade, and that they'll get him. But if he is, if I'm Lindeborg, why wait? If you're going to be drafted in the first round, go ahead. And in this mock draft, he will be 27th. Walter Clayton, very interesting because, look, if you watch the NCAA tournament, I think a lot of people would have him as a lottery pick. And, I get why he's going 28th here. Spent, first couple of years of his career with Iona, moved to Florida, then spent last year as a shooting guard, this year as the point guard. I just think this he's like an assassin. He doesn't show much emotion. He can score. He hit a number of ridiculous three-pointers in the NCAA tournament, but not only could he do that, when teams would play out on him and force him off the three, he would just say fine and beat him off the dribble and score inside. And then defensively, I thought even in games where he wasn't scoring well, he would make an impact defensively. He's got good size at 6'4". I think this is far too low for Walter Clayton. And his teammate from Florida, Alex Condon, going here at the end of the first round. That's very interesting to me because personally, I know Alex Condon is the guy who's had the higher standing throughout this year and last year in terms of the NBA draft process, but I think his teammate Thomas Ha is a more intriguing NBA draft prospect. So, not to say that Condon isn't deserving, but I think Ha I would take before him, and I'm just surprised to see Condon personally. I get the narrative, but personally I'm surprised to see Condon taken before him. And then Rasheer Fleming is the 30th pick. Quickly, going to go through some guys in the second round. So you've got Drake Powell from North Carolina. If he's looking at like a second round pick, I think he should go back to North Carolina. The Hornets taking Kalkbrenner. I think that he's going to go somewhere here, but I kind of hope Kalkbrenner goes to a better team. Caravan going to the Hornets. I could see Caravan coming back if he's going to be a second-round player. Maxime Reynaud from Stanford going to the Sixers. Janai Broom going 38th to the Spurs. And then his Auburn teammate Tahad Pettiford going 39th to the Raptors. I think if Pettiford's going to be a second-round pick, he should go back to school. Chaz Lanier as the 41st pick here to the Warriors. Milos Uzan to the Kings. Similar story. I think if these guys who have eligibility remaining are going to go in the second round, they should go back to school. Isaiah Evans, similar story here. He could go back. JT Toppin. Who else are we looking at here? Tyrese Proctor's got an interesting decision. Sion James, I think, could be a 3-and-D wing at the next level, not a point guard. Kobe Brea, one of the best shooters in the country. I think he will carve out a role. Maybe he won't be as they say, a 16-game player, but I think he certainly will be an 82-game player. And lastly here, Braden Smith. There's no way I see Braden Smith entering the draft to be a late second-round pick when he can go back to Purdue. So that's it. That is the end here of my reaction to the latest mock draft from ESPN. I'm curious, what do you guys think? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And who are some of the prospects that you think should be drafted higher? Who are some that you think should be going lower? Until next time, please subscribe to the channel. Drop your comments and like this video. It really means a lot. We're going to keep building this thing. Peace.